I don't know what to tell you. To be honest with you, I'm at a bit of a loss. Your employees can't get into their web server, and I don't know why. I mean, I know your business is shut down. I know your employees can't do what they need to do until they can get back into that web server, but I just don't understand what's going on. I've never seen anything like this before. I have a few things that I'm going to try. I'll get back to you in about an hour to tell you whether or not they worked, how I thought they were going to work. Realistically, I'm either going to be able to fix this thing in about 2 hours, or this may take a couple of days. So you may want to start talking to people about a plan B. I'm going to get back there and try to fix the problem. What's that? I don't know how much it's going to cost. Exactly how much time, I can't tell you exactly how much time it's going to take. Listen, I'm trying to get it all back up and running. I mean, we can either sit here and we can talk, or I can work and get this thing up and running. It's your choice. Troubleshooting is probably the least appreciated skill that technicians have. Everybody tries to run out and get Microsoft certifications and Cisco certifications and college degrees, and not enough technicians sit down and try to really understand troubleshooting methodology and how to really grasp how you find the problem that you need to fix. Everybody wants to learn how to fix a Windows server. Nobody wants to learn how you figure out that it's the Windows server that's the problem. What I've found in the real world is this skill is better for my career and been much more profitable than the certifications I've had. Because when you can figure out where the problem is coming from, then you know what to learn. Then you know what to target. If you're just kind of running around willy-nilly trying to fix all kinds of different things, it just takes a long time, you waste a lot of energy, and nobody's really happy at the end of the day. This class is going to be on troubleshooting methodology. We're not going to be talking about pings, we're not going to be talking about the intricacies of servers, we're not going to be opening up computers. We are just going to be talking about the thought process that goes into troubleshooting. Just the overall thought process, the thing that goes, I don't know what that is, I don't really know what it does, but I know that thing is broken. So let's find somebody to fix that thing. That's what we're going to teach you today. So I'm Eli, the computer guy, and this is an introduction to troubleshooting methodology. Well, the first thing we have to go over is the warnings. Warning. The normal stuff. Don't do anything stupid. But you're going to do stupid stuff. So, the main warning that I have to give you when you're troubleshooting, when you're walking into new situations, is to be very, very, very careful. It is very easy to fix one minor problem and then create a massive major problem. So, you have a client whose computer can't get on the internet. You walk in, you get that one little computer on the internet, but in the process you took down 3 of their servers. It's actually not that hard to do. As you go on in your IT career, you'll see how fragile so many of these systems are, but taking a server offline, can literally be if you just brush your arm against something that you're not supposed to. So whenever you walk into these situations, just be very careful and go slow. Before you take any action, rethink it through your head 2 or 3 times. Anytime I am taking a server off of the network in a server room, when I go to unplug the cable from the switch, I will trace the cable from the server all the way up to the switch 2 or 3 times to make sure I know I'm pulling the right cable. Because if I'm pulling I think I'm pulling the cable for the web server, and I actually pull up the cable for the Active Directory server, that can have massive consequences. So whatever you do, be very, very careful. Take your time and be slow. It's better to be right than to be fast, because fast will make you wrong. The other thing is realize that you are going to break things in the troubleshooting process, so keep this in mind. Troubleshooting many times part of fixing something is that you have to break something else to make it work. So you may have to take other things offline, you may have to replace parts, you may have to deal with systems or technologies that are out of your specialty. So always keep that in your head. It's kind of like playing chess, is you go slow, you be careful, and then you try to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. So you say, I think this might be the problem. If it is the problem, who can I call or who do I need authorization from to work on this? And then you keep going that way. So if you're working on something and you realize that you may break it as you're trying to fix it, then if it does break, keep in the back of your mind, even while it's still working, go, okay, if this breaks, how would I get this fixed? And if you do that, if you be slow, be careful, and you're always thinking 3 to 5 steps ahead, you're gonna be okay. If you just run in like a bull in a china shop and you're just ripping stuff apart, you need a new career. Now, the first part of the troubleshooting process is sizing up the situation and communicating with everybody who needs to be communicated with. So you get called that there's a problem. The first thing that you need to do is you need to talk to the person that's telling you what the problem is. You know, it's either the employee that's saying my computer can't get on the network, or it's the manager saying all my people's computer can't get on the network. Go to the person who is complaining and then talk to them and figure out what their complaints are. Once you have done this, the next thing you should do is go and talk to anybody else that may be affected by the problem. So if it's a manager saying that his division, nobody in his little area can get on the internet, then when you get done talking with him, go out to a few of the employees and talk to them and find out what they think of the situation. Has the problem been going on for a little while? Did this happen today? You want to get as many viewpoints on what's going on as possible, because remember, people don't mean to lie, but a lot of times they present you with incorrect information. So if you only get your information from one source, then you may be getting incorrect information and then working off of it. So basically, you know, if a manager is complaining, go to the manager, talk to them. Then when you're done with the manager, go out and talk to a few of the employees. Make sure you actually understand what the problem is, and that the manager actually understands what the problem is. During this process, you're also going to need to find out who your point of contact is. Who is the person that actually makes decisions for what you're going to be doing? So let's say the people in this office can't get on the internet. You may need to take down the switch, or you may need to take down a networking component to repair the internet problem. So you may need to drop them off the entire network. You need to find who you ask about when you can take everybody off the network, because you don't want to just go in and unplug something and nobody can get to any shared files anymore, because if you do that, you create a larger problem. So go into the situation, talk to the person who has a problem, talk to people around them if they're having the same problem, and then find out who your point of contact is. During this process, you're trying to refine down and figure out exactly what's going on, and also see if there is a larger problem. Sometimes during these conversation processes, you find out that there's a bigger problem. Say that manager says that nobody can get on the internet. You talk to the employees and you find out not only can they not get on the internet, but they also can't get to shared files. So it's a bigger problem than what you first realize. You find this out by communicating to people. You also need to find out who and what is affected. What systems are affected by this whatever not being able to happen. So if these people need to get out on the internet, talk to people. Why is this important? Does this mean that people just can't get to Yahoo when they're bored during the day? That's not a high priority, and so you're not going to take that as seriously as if this is the payroll department and they have to get on the internet because payroll is due tomorrow. Or that payroll is due, but payroll is due in 3 days. So you figure out, okay, this needs to be done in 3 days. This doesn't have to be done in 1 day. these types of questions and figuring this type of stuff out will allow you to figure out what priority the problem is, and then as you go forward with the troubleshooting process, determine what steps you take. Let's say if payroll has to go out tomorrow or in 12 hours, you will do different things than if payroll has to go out in 4 days. So if payroll has to go out in 4 days, you may troubleshoot the problem down to the router. Well, you've got a couple of days, routers are expensive, so I might try troubleshooting that router and seeing if I can fix the router, because I might be able to fix the router, it'll be less expensive than buying a new one, and everybody's happy. So, you know, it takes longer, but it's still under the time frame that you have. Well, if it's 12 hours or 24 hours so that payroll goes out, screw it. The router's bad, I'm buying a new router, I'm throwing a brand new router in there, and then payroll will go out tomorrow. People are people are not happy because they had to buy a new router, but payroll went out, which was what is more important than the cost of that router, and so they're okay. So that's the thing, talking with people, figuring out your time frames. This will show you, is the problem larger or smaller than you first realized? You know, what time constraints are you on? And then when you do figure out the problem, how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to spend 3 days troubleshooting it, or are you just going to, get something FedEx to you in 4 hours? Once you figure out all this information, then you're going to go back to your point of contact and to the person who first lodged the problem. When you go back to them, you're going to tell them what you think is going on. So, they give you the problem and you say, this sounds like a networking issue. I'm thinking this is a networking issue. These are probably the problems. And so this is how I'm going to proceed from here. So give them a brief idea of what you're thinking, and then tell them, what's going to happen from this point. When you do this, do not lie. I always tell everybody, one of the most important things in communication and technology is under-promise, over-deliver. Under-promise, over-deliver. What many technicians can't get through their head is nobody's going to be happy. Something is broken, so people are mad. People, no matter what comes out of your mouth, unless it's gold, they're going to be mad. So nothing that you say is going to make them happy. It's going to be more or less mad, but they're not going to be happy. So the issue is, when you're first talking with them, they're going to be mad. So accept that. Accept that they're going to be mad right now. Well, what people try to do is they try to placate or make the person with the problem happy. And so they overpromise. They know that the problem will probably take 4 hours to fix, but they don't want the person to be mad, so they tell them 2. Well, what they're not taking into account is when 2 hours goes by, these people are going to expect the system to be working, and since you said it would be 2 hours, then not only are they mad because it's not working, but then they think you're a complete idiot because you said it was going to take 2 hours. So always under-promise, over-deliver. If you think it's going to take 4 hours, tell them 8. Because they're mad anyway. They're angry. They don't like you. They don't like computers. They don't like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or any of this crap right now when they're complaining. But if you tell them it'll be 8 hours and it ends up being 4, 2, or 1, then they're happy. Then they're satisfied. If you think it's going to be 4 hours, you tell them it's 8 hours and then it takes 6. Well, it's still shorter than they realize. You may be a little more stressed, but they're not going to think you're an idiot. If you tell them it'll be 4 hours and then it takes you 8, then not only are they mad right now, not only do they hate Bill Gates, but they hate you. So under-promise, over-deliver. When you figure out what's going on, initially, when you've talked to everybody, explain this to the person who complained, to the point of contact, explain to them what your next steps will be, and then tell them how long and approximately what you think the cost is to these people. I think this will take 4 hours and you probably need another router, so this will probably cost you $2,000. If it takes 2 hours and only costs $500, they're happy. Just keep that in mind and these first steps, and it'll save you a lot of pain later. So the next step in this process is a little bit of research. So you have an overview, you have an idea of what's going on. You have a little bit of a thought in your head about what the problem probably is. The next step is to do research to figure out who to call and what to do. So if there is a web server problem, see if there is a maintenance contract on that web server. Whether it's a hardware problem, is there a maintenance contract on the hardware problem, or is this a software vendor solution where somebody is responsible for maintaining the software? At this point, you're thinking, but I don't know it's a web server. I don't know if it's the internet. I don't know if it's all of these things. Well, while you're going through the troubleshooting process, you should be continuously researching and continuously trying to understand what's going on. So you want to make sure that if it turns out to be the web server, that by the time you've troubleshot down there, then you already know what to do next. So as you're going along, as you're looking at the cables, as you're trying to figure out all these other things, you say, I see there's the web server on the network. Is there a maintenance contract with that? Yes. Okay. And then if it turns out to be the web server and you get there, then when you go back to the point of contact, you can tell them, okay, I've troubleshot it down to the web server, but I'm not authorized to touch it. It's under a maintenance contract, so now you need to call these people. Why this process needs to happen during the rest of the troubleshooting process is troubleshooting takes time. Talking to people takes time. Tracking down paperwork takes time. Getting people to call you back takes time. So as soon as I figure it out, I have an idea of what the problem is. I have an idea what I think the solution is. If right then and there, like I say with this web server, if I think the problem might be the web server, as soon as I think it's the web server, to the point of contact, I can say, okay, it may be this web server. Is there a maintenance contract on it? Yes. Do you know what the terms of it are? No. Do you have another point of contact? Do you have a point of contact for the web server? Yes, I do. Here's this person's phone number. Well, here's the thing. When they give you the phone number, do not think you just call this person and all of a sudden you're on the phone with them and hey, we're having a conversation. You're going to call them and it's going to take them 2 hours to get back to you if you're lucky. So as soon as you get that phone number, you call the person, you say, hey, I understand you're the point of contact with this web server. I'm with this company. I'm trying to fix this network problem. I don't know if it's the web server yet, but if it is, what do I need to do to get you out here? So, this process is happening while you're doing all the other troubleshooting processes. And so you do this with the web server, you do this with the network, you do this with other servers, with the internet providers, with whatever you think may be part of this problem. So if you do this with the web server and you walk into a company where their networking systems are contracted out to another company, and maybe their server hardware is contracted out to another company, if you've called all three of those companies while you're doing the troubleshooting process, then when you narrow it down to, oh, it's a router, the networking people already have a heads up, and so when you call them back, you can get the whole process done quickly. So this is the research. With it, you try to figure out who's responsible for what. Is it internal? Like if you're an employee, maybe it's a department or a division other than you. It may be a maintenance contract, so it might be something outside of your company entirely. And if it is a maintenance contract, then who is the internal person to call for that maintenance contract? Because although you have an account number, many times they don't let any average tech call Avaya or IBM or Oracle. They don't want anybody just calling them up because it costs them $500 an hour. So if you do have a maintenance contract, figure out who needs to be the one to make the call for it, and then figure out how all the systems kind of work together. So, you've got this web server. Talk to people and figure out that connects to what network, who is responsible for that network, what is on that network, how many web servers do you have. In this process, do research and figure out what's going on. Like I say, research is an ongoing process during troubleshooting, so the better you get at researching and talking to people as you're doing the troubleshooting process, the quicker you will end up being able to get the problem resolved. Because, like I say, if you wait all the way till you figured out exactly what the problem is before you call anybody else, then you're going to have to wait another 2 hours for them to call you back. Whereas if you've given them a heads up 2 hours ago, you figure out what the problem is, it gets fixed quicker. So make sure to do your research and talk to people. Now that you've done your research and you've talked with everybody and you have an overall idea of what's going on, you've put out the calls to the people that you may need during this process, then you need to get a large eagle-eye view of what's going on so that you can narrow down where the problem may come from. If you've been in technology any length of time, you know that you're never going to understand everything. And once you've done a few certifications, you stop wanting to understand everything. Somebody else gets paid to know different things. You're paid for one thing, other people are paid for other things, and that's fine. So when you're troubleshooting, you have to realize that when you find out the device or the software that's causing the problem, that may not be something that you have any business fixing. So you narrow it down, like I say, it's that black box right there. Okay, let me call the person to fix that black box. So you want to look at an overall, an eagle-eye view of the situation so that you can narrow down where the problem may be coming from. So in this example, what we're going to talk about is we are going to have a company who has a web server, so an internet server, a website, that people go to put in their payroll. So you have a main headquarters office somewhere, and then a remote office gets on the internet and accesses the web server at that main office. Now, for some reason, the people at the remote office can't access that server. So we need to figure out what's going on. So if we're looking at this, the first thing that we know is that these people have to go through the internet to get to the home office. So the people in the remote office have to go through the internet to get to the home office. So we have our fancy little iNet. This is the internet cloud. So, okay. So we could be having a problem in the internet cloud. If you're new, these words, don't worry about these words, but you may have a problem with DNS. You may have a problem with a security certificate. You may have problems that reside in configurations that are well within the internet. So you could be having an internet problem. Now, on either side of this, you could also be having an internal network problem. So the remote office uses the internal network to connect to the internet. The headquarters, of course, uses an internal network to get to the internet too. So, this has routers and switches and wireless access points and firewalls and all that. So we're not getting down to whether it's a router or firewall. It's just, it could be the internal network. So it could either be the internet now, it could be the remote site's internal network, or the headquarters site's internal network. We don't know which. Then once we get past that, then we have the actual workstation on this side. So the computer that goes through the internal network to get to the internet to go to the other internal network, that could be the problem. Maybe it has a virus, or maybe Internet Explorer is buggy. That could be the issue. Or on the other side, the server that hosts the website, so www, could be the problem. So we now see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 large areas that may be the problem. It may either be the desktop computer or computers, so that's one. It could be the internal network at the remote site. That's two. Maybe there's something screwing that. It could be the internet. Maybe something in the internet is messed up. Not like it's crashing or anything, but like I say, DNS may be incorrectly configured. Their IP addresses might be pointing at the wrong place. It could be the headquarters office's internal network that's a problem. Or it could be the web server itself that's the problem. So there's 5 large areas that you can try to troubleshoot at and figure out where the problem is. So I could figure out that, yes, it is the internet. So I need to call the internet people and rejigger our DNS or whatever. Or I know there's a problem with the client computer. Or I know there's a problem with this server. Again, I may not be authorized to touch the server, but I can say I've troubleshot every other major component, so I know now that the server is the problem. Now who do I hand this off to? So this is how you divide your problem into an eagle-eye view, and you try to find the major points of failure where the problem could be. Like I say with this, could it be the devices, first internal network, internet, second internal network, or the web server. Now that you have the eagle-eye view of how the system works and where the problems might be, then you need to start going in and trying to either say that large chunks of those systems are good, or that they might be suspect. So what does this mean? Is once you've narrowed down to a particular computer or to the server, you can get very specific on your troubleshooting techniques. But when you've just got this problem, this computer here can't get to this web server here, there could be a lot of issues going on. So you don't want to be doing very, very, very specific and precise troubleshooting at this point, because it's just going to be a waste of time. You want to try to eliminate large chunks of this whole system, and to say that they are probably good. So what I try to do is I try to work on the outsides and work in, and then as I do that, I try to eliminate as much as possible. So I would go to these people on their computers and say, okay, you cannot get to the website at the headquarters office. Yes, we can't get there. Okay, can you get to any website at all? Well, let's see, www.cnn.com. Now, simply by seeing if they can get to any website at all, we see if their internal network and part of the internet is working. If they can get to cnn.com, then it means that they can get out to the internet, and probably at least their internal network is good. So let's say that they can get out to the internet and there's no problem. They go to cnn.com, they can go to their local bank, online banking, all that. They can get to all of that and there's no problem at all. So their little internal network is checked. It's probably good. Probably. There may be problems, but it's probably good. Now we go to the web server. And we say, is the web server working? So depending on your web server, if it has graphical capabilities in it, like it's a Ubuntu web server, or if it's a Windows web server, it'll have a web browser built into it. So I would say, go to the server, and on the server itself, can I get into that website? So, local host, you open up the browser and you go to something called localhost, and that opens up the website that's on the server. Now, if I go there and nothing happens, it goes 404 error, not found, or 500 error, not found. Then it says that the server is not giving a website to anybody. So the web server is definitely the problem. It says, you just can't get to the website at all, even on the server. In this situation, let's say you go there and you find out that, hey, the web server is okay. So, you go onto the web server, you open up the browser, you go to something called localhost, and the website pops up fine. So you know that the server itself is okay. Well, in this troubleshooting process, you go, okay, so we know their internal network should be okay. We know that the web server should be okay. So from here, you can go to somebody that's in the headquarters building and you say, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you try to pull up this website internally? So inside the headquarters building, somebody at a computer then tries to go to the website. They go to it and they get there just fine. So we go, okay, so that means it's not the web server, and your internal network is probably doing fine. There's probably not any problems. So you think, okay, so the web server is good, the headquarters internal network is good, the remote site internal network is good, So the question is left: is it the computer at the remote site, or is it the internet? Maybe there's a configuration problem in the internet. Well, depending on how many remote offices you have, hopefully you have a couple, what you could ask is, if there's another remote office, can they, on their computers, get to the website? So you call up another remote office, you say, hey, can you just do me a favor, can you try to get to the billing website right now? They go in and, hey, they get to the website. So then, the internet is most likely fine. You most likely don't have any problems. The last thing that you're left with is the local computer. So from here, you can then ask other people in the office, are you having any problems with your computer? No, I'm not. Okay. So other people on computers are working okay. So it must be this specific computer here. Maybe there's a problem. If you go further, you go in and you find out that, I don't know, some security setting in their web browser is all messed up, so they can't get to the website. But look, this is a very quick and easy way to determine what's going on. And you could have figured out that it was a web server. You could have figured out that it was a network. And with me, when I'm troubleshooting, all these steps right here can be done in 30 minutes. So even on a large network, even in an enterprise network, you can run through all this, calling people up, trying things out, and you can get down to the main problem in 30 minutes or less. Like I say, if this turned out to be a server, or if this turned out to be a firewall or something, you may not be able to fix it at this point, but at least you know exactly what the issue is. So when I do troubleshooting, I say to work from the outside in, so from either sides, the web server on one side, the client computer on the other, and then try to take out as many large chunks as possible. Obviously, if you're watching this class, you realize that I probably could have done other things to make this even shorter. Like I could have called this other remote office even first. If I asked them the first thing to get to this web server, I could have eliminated a few of these troubleshooting steps. But that's what you try to do. Just work from the outside in, and then chop off as large a chunk as possible, and figure that they're going to be okay. So you've gone from the eagle eye view down to figuring out where the problem resides. Is it the computer? Is it the web server? You've gone, it's that thing. So now that you've figured out that it's that thing, this box, now you have to start asking a couple of questions. Most problems come about because things have changed. So whoever your point of contact is, or whoever's responsible for this computer, whether it's the secretary, whether it's another technician, whether it's an outside firm, you need to figure out if something happened to this device between when it was working and when it was not working. So you can think about unintended things. Say a power outage. Maybe the building got hit with an electrical storm. They say, oh yes, we had a power outage 3 days ago, and that's when the internet started acting a little weird. Well, you may have had a spike of electricity shoot through that network, and maybe only the router got fried. Maybe nothing else on the network got fried. So you can go, oh, there may be a hardware issue with this. So what happened? Is there anything significant that has happened that's been unintended? The next question has anything happened that is intended? Did somebody do something to make the problem come about? So let's say with that one person trying to get to the website, you ask them, okay, this was working on Monday, right? Yeah. And now it's Wednesday and it's not working. Yeah. Did you do anything Monday or Tuesday to make this not work? Well, I was just a little worried about my security, so I put on Norton security suite. So simply by asking that little question, you go, well, so you installed a security suite piece of software, and now you can't get to a secure website. Maybe that's the problem. So you can narrow down, did people, maybe it was an operating system update. If you're dealing with Cisco or networking equipment, and it was called an iOS update. Maybe they updated the latest iOS, and it was faulty. So they updated it, they didn't realize there was a problem, and there is. So you can say, okay, then most likely the problem is this, so we need to fix, and we understand what to do. Uninstall Norton Internet Security Suite, or reinstall an old iOS, or such. The next thing that you need to think about and ask, though nobody may have the answers for you, but you need to think about it, has anything automatically happened that could cause this problem? So Windows is notorious for this with their automatic updates. Well, some of their automatic updates break stuff. So like with .NET, somebody may have created a piece of software for .NET 1.0. This is a programming language. Well, Microsoft automatically updated to .NET 2.0, and that broke the piece of software. I actually saw this happen. I had some people using backup software that used .NET 1.0. They're written in that, they used that, and then when Microsoft updated to .NET 2.0, it broke the software. It would no longer function whatsoever. So we had to uninstall that .NET 2.0. So is there anything that could have automatically happened? The next thing that you need to go into then is, if nobody's messed with anything, so nobody's done anything that they're telling you, nothing's automatically happened, and nothing unintentional, power surges, the like, then you need to go in and do the basic self-diagnostics on the system. So let's say if this is a web server and I have problems connecting to this web server, I can go in and I can see, is the CPU working appropriately? Is it under, let's say, 50% usage? If I go in and I find out that the web server has 100% CPU usage all the time, so that means the processor is just working 100% of the time, then I can find out that that's a problem. Again, if the web server isn't something I'm supposed to repair, then I may not go any further. I may find out that the CPU is pegged out, it's at 100%. So I may call the person that's responsible for the web server and say, hey, your web server is at 100%. Do you want me to do something, or do you want to try to fix this? So by doing these little self-diagnostics, even if you're not the one who's responsible for fixing the problem, you can find out information. So when the person that does come in who's responsible, they have a step ahead. So you don't just go, oh, it's the web server, fix it. You can say, I've already looked at it, the CPU is pegging out at 100%. These are the things that I've seen, and go from there. Once you've done that, so you figured out if anything's changed, you've gone in and you've done the basic self-diagnostics, that's when you go in and you do the really nitty-gritty, fine-tuned troubleshooting. So that's where you ping stuff, you see if device drivers are working properly, you see all, is there a virus? So once you've seen, has anything changed, because that's most likely going to be the problem, then you've gone in and you've done the self-test, so you see what the big issues may be. Is the CPU overloaded? Then you go in and you go down to the fine-grained stuff of, like I say, looking for viruses or maybe a configuration error or something like that. So that's what you do once you get down to the computer itself or the device itself. Now at this point, we've come into a problem situation. We've asked around and we figured out the overall, all the parts that might be part of the problem. We've then troubleshot large areas and diagnosed a specific device on the network that's causing the problem. At this point, we've gone in a little bit, we've done some self-diagnostics on the piece of equipment, we've asked if anything has changed, and then either we have fixed the problem, well, we're gods, we fixed the problem, or we are not allowed to fix the problem, so we handed it off to somebody else. So at this point, again, what many technicians don't think about, and as part of the troubleshooting process, is then the reporting process. Now that you've done all of this, now that it's out of your hands, either the problem is fixed or you've handed the problem off to somebody, you need to then report to the appropriate people. So you need to report to the person that phoned in or told you about the problem. So you say, either the problem is fixed, right? Yay, okay, we're good. Or the problem is not fixed, but this is the person who's now responsible for it. Here's their contact information. And this is as far as I understand what's going to happen next. So the person that you handed everything off to should then talk to these people. He should or she should do this communication, but at the very least, you need to do the communication. You need to tell them that everything's been handed off. So I troubleshot all these things. This is where I found the problem to be. I'm not allowed to fix this problem, and tell them why. It's out of my responsibility, or I simply don't know how to. I'm not trained in that. And so, Bob has now taken this on. He says it should be, X, Y, or Z, but you'll have to talk to him. So you tell that to the person that told you about the problem. Then you tell that to the point of contact. So the person that makes the decisions or writes the check. If you're going into a small business, that's maybe the business owner. If you're in an enterprise, it may be the department manager. So let's say the secretary was having a problem, you fix her problem, and then you just knock on the door to the department manager and said, I was fixing this issue for your secretary. It's out of my ability to fix, but we did narrow it down to a specific piece of hardware. Bob is now fixing it, so he should be along, and he'll tell you what's going on next. And then, of course, also tell your boss. If you have a boss, just tell them that this is what happened, this is what I did, this is who I handed it off to. So everybody is in the loop of communication. Nobody says, well, Eli was working on it, and then he just... Where did Eli go? Well, it's still not fixed. Damn Eli! Well, maybe Bob's problem. I mean, you may have handed it off to Bob, and then Bob was just a complete idiot. Well, if you don't tell people you handed it to Bob, then when Bob does dumb stuff, you're going to get blamed for the dumb stuff. And in computers, a lot of this is don't blame me type of thing. So once you've reported to anybody, then, whether you're an employee or a consultant, a contractor, it's most important if you're a contractor, then ask them if there is anything else. Just be very polite. Just say, okay, I fixed your problem, or I did as much as I could and I handed it off to somebody else. Is there anything else I can help you with? With contractors, this is where the real money is, because if you only go in and you fix the specific problem that's in front of them, well, you'll get a couple of billable hours. If you then fix that, you prove that you're pretty good, then you can say, do you have any other problems? And then maybe they do have other issues, and then a 2-hour job turned into an 8-hour job or a 16-hour job. So when you get done with this whole process, then just ask them, okay, this is what's happened. Is there anything else before I go? Now, the final part in the troubleshooting process, again, nobody likes to do for some reason, is within a reasonable amount of time, call back the point of contact and the person who had the problem and ask if the issue has been resolved or if there are any further problems. So let's say if they need to replace a computer, call them back in 5 days and did you get the new computer in? Is it working okay for you? If I needed a new internet connection, it might take 2 weeks to get that in. So in 2 weeks, call them back and say, okay, you're now on a new internet connection. Has that fixed the problem? By doing this, you show that you don't just forget about the people, and you may find out that your diagnosis was incorrect. People don't mind if you're wrong, and people don't mind paying a little money even if you're wrong. What they do mind is if you're wrong, they paid some money, and then you just disappear off into the nether regions. So if you fix the problem, so you've gone in and you fix the problem, call them back in 2 or 3 days and just verify that the problem is still fixed, that you didn't put a Band-Aid on it. Sometimes people accidentally put Band-Aids on problems where they think the problem was fixed overall. Realistically, you just slap a Band-Aid on it, and after 3 days, the person broke it again. So that's not a real fix. That's only a Band-Aid. So make sure to call them back. That was a class on troubleshooting methodology. So at this point, you should have an idea of when you walk into a problem situation, what to do. You first talk to people to try to understand what their problem is. You then research what's going on, what systems may be involved in the problem, and then who is responsible for those systems. Once you understand that, you then take an eagle-eye view of all of the systems and then try to turn those systems into blocks. So you don't try to focus on every single computer in a network. You just say, okay, the internal network, all the networking devices, the internet, the other internal network, the server, etc. So you try to lump as much of the pieces in the problem together as possible. Once you've done that, you narrow down to what you think the specific device is or the specific problem is. You then ask, has anything changed? Unintentionally, intentionally, or automatically, because I swear to you, 95% of all problems come from people changing crap. And most of the time they weren't even supposed to change it. They weren't even supposed to touch the stupid thing. And for some reason they got it in their head to go in and mess with it, and so the network got shut down. So, has anything changed? 95% of the time that will tell you what the problem is. Oh, you're an idiot, and I'm going to fix your problem. Once you've done that, you then do self-diagnostics on the device, and by doing those self-diagnostics, if you're not responsible for the device, you can give that information to the person who is, and then basically you can give them a leg up on what's going on. So when they come in, they're not just coming in blind saying, oh, maybe Eli's wrong, maybe it isn't, my device, maybe it's actually one of his devices. If you narrow down to this particular device and then you say, I see within the self-diagnostics that there is problems, your CPU is running at 100% all the time, then they go, oh yeah, it's my problem. If you don't hand it off, then you get into the nitty-gritty of the troubleshooting the particular device, and this is where certifications and training comes in. So you troubleshoot Cisco routers a specific way when you know it's a Cisco router. You troubleshoot Linux web servers a specific way when you know that it's a Linux web server. Once everything is done, once you have either fixed the problem or you've handed it off to somebody else, make sure and go back and do your reporting to the people who need to know this information. Talk to the point of contact, talk to the person who had the problem, who called it in. Talk to anybody that may need this information. One, you just need to talk. I mean, I know this is a computer world, but the more you talk to people, the more comfortable they're going to feel around you, and the better they are going to think that you're doing your job. So just talk to everybody that you can. But and tell them what's going on. So you tell them, these are the steps that I've done, this is how long it's taken, and or how much it's cost. I have either fixed the problem or I have handed it off to this person. This person should be contacting you shortly to fill you in on what they're doing. I can't speak to that because I have handed it off to them. So that tells everybody your responsibility is done. You have walked in, you have been very professional, you have communicated with people, you seem to have done your job very professionally, and if there's any problems past here, they will now blame it on Bob. They will not blame it on you. And, in this business, a lot of this business is passing the buck. Hopefully the person that deserves it. And then once that's done, the final thing, and this is the final step, you're not done yet. The final step is then to call back the person with the problem or the point of contact in a reasonable amount of time after you've handed the problem off or after you've fixed it, and say, has the problem been resolved? I fixed the issue 3 days ago. Is everything still working right? Did I accidentally put a Band-Aid on this without realizing it and I didn't do a real fix, or is it solid? If the internet's not working, you wait 3 days, you call them back. If it's still working then you've done a solid job. If it's broken again, well, then you've got problems. Also feel free to call whoever you handed the work off to. So again, to make yourself look more professional, before you call back that point of contact or the person that complained, call the person you handed the work off to and say, hey, how did that go? And they'll go, oh, I'm still working on it, or oh, I fixed it. So when you call back the point of contact, the person who complained, you go, I talked with Bob and he says it's been fixed. So you tell them, I'm calling you just to make sure everything's okay. I just talked to Bob, he said everything's fixed. I just want to make sure it really is fixed. again, even if it's broken, we then make Bob look like the idiot and not you, especially if he hasn't called back. If everything's okay, then it just looks like you've done your job very well. That is troubleshooting methodology. If you learn how to do troubleshooting correctly, if you learn how to communicate, you learn how to research, and you learn how to very quickly narrow down to where problems are, you're going to do fine in this field. If you can't get this through your head, I don't care how many certifications you have. I don't care if you're the greatest CCIE to I don't know, kiss Bill Gates' feet. It won't matter if you can't do troubleshooting. So when you go into your next situation that requires troubleshooting, what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking about the process. We all develop our own ways of doing this. We develop our own ways of talking and researching and communicating. So coming out with exact bullet points, it's a waste of all of our time. But I want you to start thinking about the process. Start thinking how you should do the process and what works for you. If you do that, you will be very successful in this field. Like I say, if you don't, I don't know, be a cook or something. So I'm Eli the Computer Guy. This was Troubleshooting Methodology, and I'll see you at the next class.